This presentation has been downloaded from bankobiology.blogspot.com. In this video, I'll be discussing in detail about the monohybrid cross and the Mendel's two laws of heredity or inheritance. In previous video, we discussed about monohybrid cross. And we know that the F2 generation, in F2 generation, the monohybrid phenotypic ratio was tall 3, dwarf 1, that is 3:1. 1, 2, and 3. These three are tall and this is dwarf. Whereas monohybrid genotypic ratio, homozygous tall 1, capital T, this is homozygous tall, heterozygous tall 2, capital T, small t, this is heterozygous, and cis T is dominant, capital T is dominant, which is representing tall character. So, the phenotypically plant will be tall, but genotypically it will be heterozygous. So the monohybrid genotypic ratio is 1:2:1. Now, Mendel made similar observations for other pairs of threads, and based on these, Mendel proposed something was inherited from parent to offsprings, and he called them as factors. And factors are now called as genes, and genes is the term which was given by Johansen. We should not use capital T for tall and D for dwarf, because it is difficult to remember whether T and D are alleles of same gene or not. Because capital T and small t both are T, then we know that they are the pair of same gene or character. If we study in detail about the inheritance of one gene, the F1, that means capital T small t, when self-pollinated, produces gametes capital T and small t in equal ratios. That means capital T have 50% chance to pollinate eggs of capital T and small t. Also, pollen grains of small t have 50% chance to pollinate egg of capital T and small t. And 1/4 of random fertilization lead to capital T and capital T. You see, there are four individuals or offsprings are formed, and in these four offsprings, we are having 50% chance of capital T small t, capital T small t, whereas 1/4 of random fertilization, it leads to capital T and capital T, that means homozygous tall, and 1/4 of random fertilization leads to homozygous dwarf. It has to know that the recessive character is expressed only in homozygous form. Dominant character can be expressed in heterozygous form, but the recessive character is expressed only in homozygous form. And this can be represented as binomial expression as ax plus by whole square. That means half t plus half t, That means 50% chance capital T, 50% chance small t. Whole square means here capital T small t into capital T small t means half t into half t whole square. They are half t plus half t. If you see, we'll cross, then we get 1 by 4 capital T, half small t capital T, and 1 by 4 small t small t. So this is the binomial expressions of the inheritance of one gene or representing the F2 generation in monohybrid cross. When Mendel self-pollinated the F2 plants, he found that it continued to generate dwarf plants in F3 and F4 generations. So, the genotype of the dwarf was homozygous. That I have told that dwarf or the recessive character is expressed only in homozygous form. Now we'll discuss about backcross and test cross. Backcross is crossing of F1 hybrid. F1 means heterozygous. Back with any of the parent. Parent here means homozygous parent. So backcross is crossing of F1 hybrid back with any of the parent. So test cross is crossing of F1 hybrid, that means heterozygous, with its recessive parent. This is important, that test cross, the crossing of F1 hybrid is done with the recessive parent, and it is used to find the unknown genotype. Unknown genotype. We want to know the genotype. Suppose we are having a heterozygous doll. We don't know, because we know typically homozygous doll appears to be tall and heterozygous doll appears to be tall. So what we have to do? We have to find the genotype of both the plants. Then we cross them with the recessive parent. If they are crossed with recessive parents, suppose we are having the recessive parent as small w, which is white flower, and capital W, which is homozygous violet, whereas in next cross we are taking homozygous recessive and heterozygous violet. That means capital W and small w. Both the flowers, both the genotypes, they are giving the violet phenotype or dominant phenotype, but we don't know the genotype. So when we are crossing this with the recessive parent, if we are having homozygous violet, then all the flowers will be violet. When all the flowers are violet, we conclude that the unknown flower is homozygous dominant. But when the heterozygous is crossed with homozygous recessive, half of the flowers are violet and half of the flowers are white. So what we find? 50% violet and 50% white flowers. We conclude that the unknown flower is heterozygous. So here test cross can be used or is used to find the unknown genotype of the any individual when we are crossing the F1 hybrid with its recessive parents. Or we can say we can cross the hybrid with the recessive parents. And Mendel conducted test cross to determine the genotypes of F2 generation. That is why we got 1:2:1. That was the result of test cross. And based on the monohybrid cross, Mendel's formulated two laws of inheritance or two principles of inheritance. We are getting here the name of our chapter, that is principles of inheritance. First law is law of dominance. First law is law of dominance, and second law is law of segregation. So law of dominance, it states that in dissimilar pair of factors, which is now known as genes, only one member of the pair dominates the other. Dominates the other means if we are having dissimilar pair of genes such as capital T and small t, then if both are present, then only capital T, one of the member means only capital T dominates, means is expressed, and all the factors or genes, they occur in pairs, and characters are controlled by discrete units called factors. A discrete unit means at that time we were not known the exact structure or composition of the genes. So this was the first law of inheritance, law of dominance. Second law is law of segregation. Segregation means separation. Segregation means separation. Means it states that during the gamete formation, the alleles or factors of a character pair present in parents segregate from each other such that a gamete receives only one of the two factors. For example, if we have capital T, then if they are segregating, we are having in gamete only one capital T, in another gamete, another capital T. But if we are having capital T and small t as the genotype, then the gametes will have one allele with equal proportion. That means capital T in one gamete and small t in another gamete. So homozygous parents, they produce similar gametes, whereas heterozygous parents produce two kinds of gametes, each having one allele with equal proportion. So these were two laws of inheritance proposed by Mendel on the basis of monohybrid cross. That means first two laws of Mendel are based or derived from monohybrid cross. In the next video, I'll be discussing about deviation from Mendelian ratio.